Hello, good day. Well, for today we're going to check something about the domain and range. Okay, let's going to identify what is the domain, what is the range. Okay, and also we are going to use something that we used before about the intervals. So well, I hope that you understand all this topic. And let's going to start with the domain. What is the domain? Well, the simple definition is about the domain are all the possible values that we can take from X. Okay, and the range could be the opposite, all the possible values that we can take from y, or well, also we can say a function of x. You know that really is practically the same to say y and a function of x. How this works? Well, for example, let's go and imagine that we have this equation y equal 3x plus 2. Okay, and here let's gonna say that we can use, or we need to check what values can we use with the x. In this case, well, we see then we have 3x plus 2. We don't have, let's gonna say, we don't have any restriction. We're gonna check this about the restrictions in a moment. But here in this equation, we don't have any restriction about the x. Okay, we can use all the values from, let's gonna say, minus infinite until positive infinite. Okay, so we can use any value. And if you want to know what values from y we're gonna use, well, the only thing that we need to do, let's gonna say that we're gonna check some values from x, 1, 2, minus 1, minus 2, and 0. And we are gonna apply the substitution about these values in the x. Okay, it's not gonna be like a y equal 3x plus 2. It's gonna be like a y equal 3 times 1, for example, like the first value. So the first result is gonna be 5. Y equal 3 times 2, well, plus 2 is gonna be 8. And minus 1. Okay, we continue solving this. So the values from the y is going to be 5, 8, or minus 1, for example. And well, this is a basic idea about how can we use the domain, or well, how can we supplement the values from the x, and what values from the x can we take. But like I told you, let's gonna check something related about the restrictions. Okay, here as you see, we have two functions or two expressions like this one. It's a fraction, and we are going to have the radical. Okay, we have the square root. So here, for example, if we start with a fraction, we need to understand, well, I say here that the x is not possible to be equal 0, but we need to understand that it's not possible to have on the bottom, or to have in the denominator, the value of 0, because when we have the value of 0, it's undefined, this expression. Okay, it's not possible to have this. And also we need to analyze, for example, what's happening with the square root. With the square root, remember that it's not possible to have a negative value into the square root. So for this case, if we have this function or this expression, we need to say like the x must have or must be equal 0 or greater than 0. Okay, and also, for example, in consequence, the y in the first situation is not possible to be equal 0, and here we can have the y greater or equal 0. Okay, so here, for example, if we analyze the restriction for each expression, let's going to start with a fraction. We say that the x is not possible to be equal 0, so we can express the domain. This is the d from the domain. It's taken from minus 0, approaching to 0, but it's not gonna be 0, and union 0 until infinite. Okay, you don't remember the situation about the unions, or how can we represent this interval? Well, I recommend you the previous video, but this is the idea. Okay, then we can express the interval with this, or the domain. That's the idea. And with the range, it's gonna be the same. Okay, with the range, it's not possible to be equal 0, or to take this 0, and we're gonna start from minus infinite to positive infinite. Okay, so this is the idea when we talk about the domain and range, about the fraction. What about the radical? Well, with the radical, like we say before, we have x is greater or equal 0. So here, check, we change a little the symbol, we put the bracket, because we can take the 0. Okay, here is possible to take the 0, but it's gonna be the domain from positive, or from 0 until positive infinite. Remember that it's not possible to have negative values here. And the range in the same expression is going to be also the bracket. So we can take the 0, and we advance until positive infinite. Okay, so that's the idea. when we talk about the domain and range, okay? And this is the utility. The utility about the domain and range is to identify what values can we take or what values can't take, okay? And it's gonna be easier to identify into the graph. And now that we talk about the graph, one situation here, well, it's gonna be a little advanced from the next video, but here let's gonna talk about the asymptotes, okay? We are gonna have two kind of asymptotes, and also before to talk about the asymptotes, let's gonna say what is an asymptote. Well, the asymptote is a line. For example, no matter how much you expand, you're not gonna ever cross this line. Okay, this is an asymptote. You're gonna advance until, let's gonna say, positive infinite or minus infinite, and never is gonna cross this value. Let's gonna say this value is 3. Okay, so that's the situation. And about the asymptotes, we can say we can have verticals and we can have horizontals. Okay, the verticals, well, it's gonna be simple. The verticals are the values that can be taken by x. The horizontals, well, are the values that can be taken by y or of x. Okay, so if you represent this, for example, here, let's gonna say that we have one graph, and this graph, well, we have two asymptotes, one horizontal and one vertical. So here, for example, let's gonna draw again this. Let's gonna say that we have this this asymptote, okay, from well, 4 and 3. So let's gonna say that we're gonna have something like this. Is you see the shape. Never this line grows these values, okay? So we can have this like our asymptotes. I repeat, we're gonna check or we're gonna analyze this concept deeply in the next video. But I hope that you understand about well, what is a domain, what is a range, and what are the utilities about the domain and range, okay? And how can we express this into the graph? Okay, so well, I hope that you understand. I wish you a good day, and we continue for the next time. Bye bye.